All right. Hello and welcome to the Freedom Stein Laboratory. Today is the 22nd of December, 2025, and I'm back home where I have Wi-Fi. Wasn't able to do anything over the weekend because the Wi-Fi was pretty sketch at the campground, and then a whole bunch of people came in to start using it, and it had like one, maybe two little bars. So I was like, there's no way I can do any kind of a show or recording or anything during that. And I had some stuff I wanted to talk about because, oh my goodness, I see people calling the Amfest Scamfest is kind of the way this is going. It definitely revealed the civil war going on in the conservative movement. And, we've got Ben Shapiro, who apparently, because he gave $1 million to TPUSA, got himself up on the stage to speak. And he was one of the first speakers. And he decided to call out Candace and Tucker and even Megyn Kelly. And using these tactics of the left, let's shut everybody down and make them shut up. And if you're not saying the right words or thinking the right thoughts, you're out of here. We don't play that game. No, not over here in the conservative, populist America First land. And Ben Shapiro telling any of us what to do, well, he can kiss my. And Megyn Kelly basically said he's not my friend anymore. And I don't blame her for saying that because I would be in the same place. I'd be like, dude, you're just going to like call me out on stage, kind of, backhand me. But I do have to say, watching the speech that Megyn gave, or she didn't really give a speech, she did a little questionnaire, question and answer thing with Jack Posobiec. And while she said that she supports Candace, asking questions and looking into Israel and everything like that, she can't seem to get on a side. And I don't like the Switzerland thing. I mean, get out of Switzerland. You think one way or the other. If you're in the mushy middle, you're nothing. You're like that lukewarm that Jesus said God would spit you out of his mouth. He doesn't like the lukewarm stuff. He also doesn't like it when you pray to people like Charlie Kirk. He's dead, so you shouldn't pray to dead people. I know that's a Catholic thing, but it's really not biblical. But she can't seem to get off the it absolutely positively is this Tyler Robinson character. But there might be some other people involved, but it's definitely him, and we need to get justice, and we need him to, get convicted and all that good stuff. And I'm so tired of all that. Anyway, that's not really what I wanted to talk about on this episode. The title is Who Killed and What Killed Charlie Kirk? Are you guys as confused as I am at this point? Watching so many videos, so many takes. I feel like we're in a real life huge game of Clue. Do you guys play Clue ever? You see the movie? Loved it. I love Tim Curry. He's so amazing. Anyway, so we have a whole bunch of weapons that could be involved here, or should I say, ways to kill someone. And then we also have a whole bunch of people who could be involved. And then, well, the one thing that we might actually know, and I'm sorry, my camera's kind of doing some weird stuff. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Let me get rid of my video. Oh, I think I'm okay now. Um, but one of the things that I think we know for sure is like the room that it happened in. Although maybe we don't know that either. Most people would be like, okay, yeah, he died at UVU. I believe that he was dead before he hit the ground. However, there are some people who believe that they carried his body off and put him in the SUV and finished him off in there. I was like, wow, man, you really think some bad thoughts about these people. And then, of course, we have the story, which I've never been able to make sense of this one because Frank Turek said when they were in the SUV that Charlie was like staring past him off into space and he knew he was gone then, but he had a pulse when they got to the hospital. Well, was he dead, Frank, or did he have a pulse when you got to the hospital? And did he have the pulse because you guys were doing CPR in the SUV, which you didn't bother to do when he was on the ground back at, UVU? Maybe you did get a pulse. I don't know how you do that when somebody's lost a huge quantity of blood and you haven't replaced it with any fluid. And then generally speaking, when you bring somebody into an ER and okay, let's say they do get a little minimal pulse, are you going to rush them right off to surgery? I think you would try to get some fluids and stuff into them first and then maybe try the surgery thing. I don't know. I just think everything, anybody who's saying that he had a pulse and died at the hospital, that's ludicrous. It's as ludicrous as that doctor who was trying to force his way back into that operating room so that he could clean up the body and I contaminate the evidence and whatever he was going to do there. But I believe that he died at UVU. So we have the room that it happened in. But as for who and what weapon, unfortunately, I think we're just never going to know. But I think we need to have some critical thinking here. And there's a lot of people that I have found that are these independent investigators on YouTube. I love a lot of the stuff they're putting out there, but then they're starting to kind of munch them all together. Like Baron Coleman, we all know that he was really sold on the electrocution thing. He believes that Charlie was electrocuted. We'll be talking about that in a minute. But then I was listening to his most recent episode, and he was talking about John Bray, who appeared on Trigger Smart, which my wife and I listened to yesterday as we were coming back from the campground. And that was fascinating about the exploding mic. And so Barron was basically going, well, I think it could be that. And then you could also have the electrocution in there. And then we all know there was a gunshot that went off. Was there a real bullet? We don't know. Where did the bullet go? But that we're getting into ludicrous land for me with my critical thinking. Because first of all, I think that intelligence and our government are pretty incompetent. So for them to pull this stuff off, it's always like the way they pulled off JFK was amazing and that they've managed to keep it tamped down all these years. But I kind of think that they got lucky with it, maybe, because these guys usually can't figure out what the hell they're doing. So I'd have to believe that there was an exploding mic, an electrocution through the microphone, and a gun was shot all at the same time. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. All of those things couldn't have been happening at once. And I have a really hard time when it comes to talking about firing the gun. Why wouldn't you just shoot him? Why are we going to all these other extravagant ways of killing someone when you could just shoot him? If you want to make something look like a chest shot, just shoot him in the chest. I don't understand all that. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. What I want to do is rewind back 3 months. The way that I found out that this had happened to Charlie Kirk, my wife had messaged me and texted me, and I was looking at all the different messages because I didn't look at it in real time. So I saw that Charlie had been shot, and then a little bit later, Charlie's dead. And I'm like, oh my God. So I immediately go on to X because I want to find out some more information. The very first video I saw, and I've never seen this angle again, is that it is from the back right of Charlie. So I can't see any blood. I can't see wounds, anything like that. All I hear is the gunshot. And then I see Charlie, kind of make a movement to the side, and then he falls over. So in my mind, from that view, my initial thoughts were the bullet came from the right, hit him. Then later, when I saw the wound on the front of his neck, I assumed it was an exit wound. So I thought he was shot from this side, went through to his neck, exited, and then went down into the ground or something. People were talking about it ricocheting off his knee. I don't know. I just know it didn't hit anybody else. And that was my initial thought. So I thought that the shooter was over there. Then the official narrative comes out and they're saying, no, this guy shot from, I don't even remember how many feet now because it's just BS. I haven't chosen to remember it. But this later on, we'll find out it's this Tyler Robinson, but that he shot from basically straight on a roof that was up above. And I was like, oh, so this was an entry wound. But I know I saw from the back side, there was no exiting of a bullet because that would have gone right through whatever material they had on the back of the tent. I would have seen something of that nature. So I was like, wow, that's so weird because that's not the way his body went. Like, it didn't look like he, if you get shot from the front, you would think he'd kind of fall backward and that he would have fallen against the, whatever that, sheet or whatever behind him. And I was like, that's just weird that you would get shot from the front and fall over to the side. Well, then, of course, when I started seeing these front videos, then it was like, wow, that's so weird because if he got shot there and hit him in his carotid, why are we not getting arterial spray everywhere? It's like his neck just kind of erupted and this blood just poured out of it. It was so strange to me. And again, we don't have him like flying backward. And then they were talking about the bullet that was used, this 30-06. I'm not into ballistics. I do own a couple of guns, actually three, but I'm certainly not an expert. I've never shot a 30-06. I don't know anybody else who has. I don't know anything about it. So I went to all these experts online and I'm watching all of these videos, whether it's Nate over at Valhalla or some of these other people, other than Paramount Tactical, who totally is on board and went over to TPUSA and was like, yes, the story that we're getting is exactly it. And yes, he was hit with a 30-06 and it didn't go through because sometimes they don't. But everybody was shooting like into bones and lots of meat and through steel plates. And it's like, if the bullet's going through all of that, it is definitely going to go through Charlie's neck. There's no way that it was caught up in there. And people are trying to say, well, it got caught in his spine and then it just went down his spine and that's why. But then when you look at the trajectory, Nate over at Valhalla had shown like if it was really from the trajectory that they were saying, it would have gone through his mouth, basically into his teeth in order to hit the C1. I mean, he was kind of looking down, so maybe there was something kind of weird about that. But even then, I would think that the head would be more involved. So you're just hearing all of these things and going, no, this cannot be it. And then I heard the first conspiracy theory about this, and it literally was about this exploding mic. And I can't remember, it was some girl I think on TikTok had done it. And what was really strange to me is that I didn't realize that Charlie would double mic himself. I guess it would have the mic that you could hear on the PA system for everybody, but then he also wanted to record maybe for the future. And he would have this mic that would sit on his chest like this. And when I watched the videos, I was like, okay, but I'm not really convinced. I mean, I kind of see it moving, but if you have an exploding thing on a t-shirt that's white, wouldn't it have like burn marks, a rip, a hole? Would we see some blood coming out of here? So I just kind of put that away because I thought, no, there's no possibility of that. And then I saw this yesterday with John Bray, and this guy, what he does apparently is he helps with not just the design of body armor, but I guess the best way to put it is he cleans it up or I don't know what you call it, kind of restores it so it can be used again or something like that. I mean, that's my interpretation. I don't know what officially that is. But anyway, he decided when he was watching all of this, he saw the same thing that all of us saw, which is that the other thing that I saw from the front is not only this neck wound from the front and the blood doing what it was doing, but I'm like looking at his t-shirt going, it's doing this weird thing. It's like if you get shot in the neck and you're getting slammed to the side or back, I wouldn't think that your t-shirt would be doing this weird rippling, pulling up kind of thing. And I had at first thought that he had an earpiece in that was hooked into whatever this mic is and into some other system. And so when he was moving, it was like pulling that up off of his belt. And so what we were seeing was the equipment underneath getting pulled out because you could see something flying out from behind him. Later on, we find, no, it's not an earpiece. He did not have an earpiece in. This is a broken necklace that is flying off of him. And yes, that could maybe pull your shirt up, but it's still, his shirt moved in such a weird way that I was like, that's not normal. And again, I'm just a regular person like all of you that are listening here, just observing something for myself. And from the very beginning, I was like, that is so strange. Why did his shirt do that? And John came right out and was like, he said he saw the same thing and then he mapped everything. And he did it with this special coating that he made up. And so he was able to like figure out the different pixels and like what would get like more pixels or the pixel that would move the most. And so as he was looking at this, he's going, there's something else going on here that has a lot of energy. And it's not a bullet going into his neck. There's something going on underneath. And the way that he kind of explained it is the mic, when it was on, it was kind of sideways rather than flat against his chest like it should have been. And so when it exploded, part of a battery or something else went flying out of it and hit him in the neck. What he thinks they were trying to do is make it look like a chest shot, and they weren't expecting the neck wound. And so he said probably when he fell down and they get over to his body and they see that he's got all this blood coming out of his neck, they were like, uh-oh, this is not what we had planned. We had this whole plan. We wanted it to look like a chest shot, which is probably why we have eyewitnesses who were coming out and saying that he was shot in the chest. And we're all going, I didn't see any blood on the front of him. I didn't see a hole in his t-shirt. How in the world was he shot in the chest? And so John said they had to come up with this other narrative about it. And what makes this plausible is that we all know that Israel had that pager attack that they did to Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they had these exploding pagers. And it worked pretty beautifully. And what they did is they would take the batteries out of them and take some of whatever the contents that are in the battery and then pack it with this explosive stuff. And then that's what would go off. And you could either use, your AA, AAA batteries, or you could use something that's more like a cell phone battery. And then John talked about the fact that I'm sure you've seen the pictures from the inside of the vehicle, the SUV, that has the little plastic stuff that's down on the floorboards. And he believes that was probably part of the road microphone that had been on him, that had, bits and pieces of it that, probably fell out of his shirt. It's got throat coat all over the floor, and those candies and stuff that he would suck on, or those lozenges. So obviously everything was coming out of his pockets and stuff like that. So it's possible that this was coming out of his shirt and everything like that. And it sounds really plausible, especially when he shows the mapping and everything that he has. And he was answering a lot of the questions. And here's what I thought was one of the more interesting questions that he answered on Trigger Smart.
All right, now this question is very interesting. Who do you think pushed the button to detonate?
It's not really important, but my gut feeling is that it was acoustic triggered because of convenience, and timing was important. You wanted this device to be timed perfectly with the ruse rifle shot, and it's a microphone, so the technology is already there. Particularly this particular microphone, the Wireless Pro, has a very precise timing. It's made
it has time code built in, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's down to the millisecond. So you could use the chipset that's already in it to get millisecond precision timing for that trigger.
Yes, very, very true. Let's see.
It would be interesting to know who did push that button. And then I had this other spot here.
Squib would replicate, the similar shirt movement. That would be the only way you could explain the shirt movement. You can't explain.
That would be from air, from like
a squib is usually air. It's just the most convenient. But you could do it with a low explosion and kind of like the opposite of a shaped charge, where you would send, instead of sending a jet into the flesh, you would send a jet out of the shirt.
This is a good question. This might just be more of a conspiratorial thing, or maybe him thinking ahead type of thing. But the reason why CK wore a white shirt that day, he usually wears dark colors like black.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do anything that I did with the mapping very well if it wasn't for that shirt. The shirt with the high contrast and those letters on it, it really gave me the perfect tool to map the movement of the shirt and kind of like really put numbers to it, down to like the feet per second that everything moves.
All right, I see we have a lot more people in here now. This is covering the exploding mic theory. And of course, hit the like. Don't forget to subscribe.
I don't want to come back to here where it's showing some of the mapping for some of this stuff. Just so that you could see kind of
equal opposite reaction. That would mean that the shape charge would have had.
Here we go. This is a good one here.
Traits of the wound itself. It's not a high velocity wound. That was a medium velocity wound. And that because of the delayed bleeding, and then also the deformation of the skin. It was just, the skin was flexed outwards. It wasn't it wasn't like a cavitation from a high energy impact. And then the bleeding was so.
But see what I mean about, this t-shirt is doing all of these things, plus he's doing all of these things, and we don't see a wound. I mean, his body is doing all of this moving, and we don't have a wound showing up yet. So it's like, why is his body reacting to something? My main thing that I have a problem with the exploding mic, what doesn't get answered for me, is I mean, I still have a hard time believing that you could have that type of an explosion that could kill someone and not have anything other than the t-shirt doing this weird rippling thing. Now, we don't know what his body looked like after this. I'm sure we're never going to see the legit autopsy. I mean, at this point, we almost can't trust any of the videos we see because they AI things, they scrub things. It's incredibly frustrating because at the end, we know we're not going to have the answers. It's like we can keep digging and digging and digging and coming up with all this stuff, but we don't even know, like the JFK stuff. We'll never know the answers there. We can go with what we think, but we'll never know for sure. So that's one of the things I have is I just have a really hard time believing that this microphone blowing up would be enough to kill Charlie and not really show any kind of a wound other than, something shooting into his neck. Now, the one thing that does convince me a little bit is that John said that he believed whatever that shrapnel was went into the wound, and then when the blood kind of came pouring out, it pushed that out. And he said you could see it on the video when you slow it down frame by frame, that it looks like there's this like plastic or something that comes out of the neck, and then here comes the cascade of blood. And so it makes sense why all of a sudden it would seem like it was this big waterfall of blood, is because something was corking it and then it was uncorked, basically. And clearly not something arterial. But I still have a little bit of my questions on that. And then you saw that question had asked, about a squib. Was this faked? Obviously, this was not faked. Charlie would have had to have been the best actor on the planet to do the things that he did and make it look the way that it did. I mean, I've seen some good death scenes in a movie, but I just can't imagine that Charlie was able to do that. And he's got 2 young kids. He's not going to go away so that he can't be around his kids and stuff. I can't see a reason why he would need to have his life end and be like in witness protection or something because people wanted to kill him. Because that's the one thing I still can't figure out here is a motive. It would be very easy to believe that you have this Tyler Robinson who is mad about the things that Charlie says, and he decides he's going to go out and shoot him because he's trying to defend his trans furry boyfriend or whatever. That's easy to believe because they're okay. Motive. Lefties don't really need to have a motive, do they? They're just kind of so, they're crazy enough to just go out and do this kind of stuff, and they're violent too. So yeah, I could believe that. But since I know that official story, or what we're now calling Fed slop, is not possibly true, what is the motive here? And even if I wanted to believe what the official narrative is, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if Tyler Robinson was involved in this in any way, somebody else put the gun up on that roof. How did the gun get there? He didn't take it up there. You showed us some videos of some character walking through a neighborhood. We don't even know if it was him with a stiff leg, and you're telling us, oh, well, the barrel was down his leg. But then when we see pictures inside at UVU and there's this guy going up the stairs, he's bending his legs going down and up. Clearly no barrel down his pants. And we're not even sure that the guy that they actually showed on the camera is Tyler Robinson, because they kind of don't look like the same person to me anyway. So I'm not even convinced that the pictures that we've seen on the security cameras is even Tyler Robinson. But let's just say it was. Again, he doesn't have a gun with him. He's not carrying it openly. There's no way he's got it all stuffed in his backpack because the barrel, hello, and it's definitely not down his pants because he's bending his knees. So he is not carrying a gun to the roof with him. So how did the gun get there? Who put the gun there? Somebody else did that. And that's what we need to know, because maybe Tyler Robinson was up on the roof. Maybe he did take a shot and thought he was going to shoot Charlie, and he thinks he did it because he's a patsy or whatever. But somebody else put that gun up there. Who did it and when did they do it? That's what we need to have answered. And I don't see any of these other people out here who are like, oh, it's definitely Tyler Robinson and we're going to get justice. And frankly, you're not going to get justice because all of these different conspiracy theories that I'm talking about here that have been put out there, if you don't think the defense is going to put every one of those out there to cause doubt, you're crazy. They would be the worst defense on the planet if they don't pull all of this stuff in there saying, was Charlie electrocuted, and pull in some of these witnesses. Some of these guys that we're seeing on YouTube might get pulled into the trial and talk about their theories because all they need to do is get reasonable doubt. And if you think they're not going to get that with these different theories, because I have reasonable doubt, and unless you answer these specific questions for me, I'm definitely not going to believe that. And that is the main question we need answered. And if this really was a gun that was owned by Tyler Robinson's family, how did they get it to put it up there? Were they working with the family ahead of time? Did it get stolen? What's going on here? So in order for me to even believe that, you know. But then I want to go back to talk about the squib. Along with that question, there was this electrocution idea. And not only did John say, well, maybe both could have happened, and then you have Barron saying, well, maybe both happened. I don't know that you could have both those things going on. And I want to go over to Valhalla did an 8-hour. Who in the world could talk for 8 hours on a live stream? And who can watch all of that? But I want to share some of this from the live stream that he did because he was talking about the electrocution theory as well. And I need to do a little bit of pushback on that as well. One thing I am proud to be is a critical thinker. I am not just going to buy everything hook, line, and sinker. And let me write this down so I don't forget. I dropped my pen on the floor. I do want to talk about Candace and Mitch. We'll get into that in just a minute. But okay, let me go in and we're going to bring up this because I wanted to talk a little bit about that.
I've ever seen.
Right hand looked like it had been tased or something, but the left hand looks just fried, in my humble opinion. I'm going to show you what led me down this path.
Okay, so let me go back to that really quick here. Okay. Yes, there is some discoloring here, but we have sun, shadow. This to me looks like blood. There's definitely blood in between all of his hands here, which is going to make it look darker. So this is not necessarily, he was like, Barron said, this hand looks completely fried. No, it doesn't. It does not look completely fried to me. And part of what we're working with here too is, I've said before, I look at a lot of pareidolia pictures for paranormal and debunking. So that's just what I do. I debunk pictures and I just don't see anything here that would make me go, oh my gosh, his hands are completely fried. What it looks like to me is that we have some blood and this is just some discoloring. I don't know if it's reflecting the blue from the jeans, kind of, looking at that between there, but we've definitely got the sun here. So you're going to have shadow here. Okay, so then the next thing I wanted to look at was this other part with, why don't I go ahead and do this really quick? Because this is, we all remember this creepy video that Erika made. When I saw her speak that first time, I was like, wow, she is so strong and she's handling this so well. And as you all know, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt and I just can't do it anymore. But when this thing came out, I was like, okay, I'm into the paranormal and cemeteries and I talk to people in the death industry. It doesn't freak me out, but this freaks me out. Why are you showing us this? I don't know. But one thing I know for sure, when you watch this video, you've probably heard people pointing out, Charlie was well over 6 feet. I think he was 6'4", 6'5", something like that. How in the hell are his hands smaller than Erika's? And I don't think you get that kind of shrinkage when you die. Your hands aren't going to shrink that much. They don't look real. But even more than that, something I haven't heard anybody else say, so you're going to get this from me first, is I'm not even so much worried about how much smaller his hands are, his body. Let me see how much of this video. I think Nate did play a little bit of the video here. Well, let me go to this picture too. I'm going to have you all over the place here.
That's not bruising.
He's only 100% not bruising.
The event just happened a second and a half.
Impossible for it to be bruising. Okay, he got shot like what, 0.8 of a second before this.
Ago, that's not a bruise. That's not blood. No blood has left the neck. You can pause the video and see when he drops the mic yourself.
Okay, so my number one debunk for this is, he's saying these are burns because the hands are darker. Again, we have shading going on. And my main reason for being like, this isn't burns from being electrocuted from the microphone, because I've held a lot of microphones in my time, and you're holding them in the center of your hand. If you're going to get electrocuted, let me stop sharing here for a minute. This part of your hand would be the most burnt from holding a microphone. Okay. This is where the microphone's going to be right here. Your thumb may not even be touching the microphone. I mean, when I'm holding a microphone, I actually have a loose one here. Hang on. Of course, it's all hooked in over here to other things, but sorry, I'm not very well prepared with my show and tell. Okay, so here's a microphone. And when you're holding a microphone, yes, you could be holding it like this. And that might be what he was doing. I tend to hold a microphone like this. So my thumb might not even be actually touching the microphone. But the main thing I want you to see is, what is the main part of the hand that's touching the microphone? Your palm. Your palm is going to have the most burns to it. So I want to go back and look at this picture, because what is the part here? Right in here. I mean, there's absolutely no burning in here, right in that middle part. So let me make this a little bit bigger here. Go full screen so you can see it a little bit better. This would have burning. There would be burning like through here. Okay. See, this is even lighter right in here. I mean, this is where the microphone would be. So I absolutely, positively do not think he was electrocuted. You can scratch electrocution off of the Professor Plum in the library with the candlestick. The candlestick was not involved here. So no electrocution. I do not believe he was. There was some feedback that Barron got into, and he said maybe that was, something that was showing that it was getting ready to trigger it. I think if he was getting feedback, usually you get feedback with microphones when you have them like too close to other things that are electrical, and you're getting EMF off that, especially if it's like another microphone. So if he was holding the microphone and he's got a microphone on his chest, maybe that's where we're getting some feedback. I don't know. It seemed like it was in a loop too. So it was strange. But this to me convinces me that Charlie was not electrocuted. Now let's see if we can get into the video.
There's no blood anywhere near his hand when he drops the
Erika
mic.
Kirk
and
doing this weird little.
This Turning Point USA put this out. And it horrifies me. If my wife did this to my dead body right after I was killed and then put this on the internet,
I'd be the same way. Don't do that.
I would be waiting for her in hell. I can promise you that. But they put this out, and even though Barron was wrong about his hands looked like this, I want you to look at his fucking hands. Because it actually, to me, this is more damning than if his hands looked bad. Because it looks to me like this motherfucker's got more makeup on his hands. Look at the color of his hands.
Yeah, he clearly has a lot of makeup on there, and they put a lot of makeup on
this looks
dead
like
bodies
what,
because
concealer?
you're going to look,
Ladies in the chat,
gray.
What's the shit called where you cover up everything with?
Let me see.
Ladies in the chat,
I just
help me
want to
out.
see if he ends up playing
What's the stuff?
playing the actual video, because
This is somebody's hands who's got a pound of fucking makeup.
oh, he's using the F word a lot. I'm sorry. I usually don't cuss that much myself.
Look how
so.
small his fucking Charlie Kirk was 6'6". Guys, look how big my hands are at 6'3". They're huge.
Sorry. Okay,
There's
so
no way.
this is kind of giving
There's
you
no way those
no,
are
Nate,
Charlie
you took
Kirk's
me away
hands.
from what I was looking at.
Mannequin hands.
Well, anyway, what I'm trying to show you here is that Charlie Kirk is 6'6", big guy. How small is this body? I mean, he was not this thin. I think I'm bigger than this in a casket. What about you guys? I'm not a big person. I'm fun sized. I'm fairly skinny, thin, I should say. And I mean, this is not Charlie Kirk's body. This is absolutely not Charlie Kirk's body. I don't know if this is some kind of a mannequin body double, some other dead person they put in there. I don't know. But this is not Charlie Kirk. And when you come to that conclusion, everything else about Erika Kirk falls apart, because if she's bullcrapping about that and putting that out to the masses, which is already kind of a sick thing anyway, to share that with people, you just don't do it. It's a private moment. You don't do that. If you're putting that out and it's fake, and now we're finding out so much is fake about her. She lies about things you don't need to lie about. We don't care I don't care if she was literally in a committed relationship with somebody else when she met Charlie Kirk and she went, this is the love of my life. This is who I want to marry. I'm going to break up with this person and I'm going to date Charlie and maybe eventually we'll get married. I have no problem with that. Why would you ever go on a town hall with Barry Weiss and say, oh, I didn't date for 5 years before I met Charlie. And then we find out not only did you date somebody else, it seemed like pretty seriously, but then you were on a reality show doing dating and drinking after you tell us that you don't drink. And again, I don't care if you drink, but don't put out that you're this pious, holier than thou, above it all, and Jesus everything, God I forgive, and all this other BS. And then lie about, if you have to lie about the little things, you're definitely lying about the big things. And now I really couldn't give you the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I was trying before, but now that all of this stuff has been revealed, you look demonic. You're lying about stuff you don't need to lie about. You aren't grieving at all. You're nowhere around your children, because there's no way you're spending any time with your children who have lost their father with all of the touring and other things that you're doing. She goes out on the stage at the Scam Fest wearing all the gold glitter pants and shirt and all the fire. I mean, it's just, I used to watch that stuff. And this time I was like, I cannot do it. I cannot watch this. I want to hear what Tucker has to say, but I can't do it. This is where our movement is now. And this is why it is going to utterly fail, because it is built on baloney. And now we are finding out that TPUSA is built on baloney. I've been listening to Crowdsourcing the Truth, and they have been going through and doing an even better job than, what's the Wolves and Gold or whatever. And Dee Dee's got a podcast when he had the guy on, and I talked about that. These guys have gone back all the way to when Turning Point was first registered, and it was registered as a 501(c), which is not a 3C. It's for profit at that point. And then they tell the IRS, well, we know we were that to begin with, and then we were going to switch it over to the 3, but we were acting like a 3 even if we weren't registered that way. And that's not how taxes and registering a business work. But the worst part about this is that it was registered back in 2012. This is before Charlie was even out of high school. He wasn't building TPUSA then. So Turning Point was already an entity before Charlie came along. So he's not really actually the founder. And on top of that, we're watching all of these people that have funded this thing and the millions of dollars. Basically, crowdsourcing the truth went, if you want to compare TPUSA to another organization, how it was set up in this kind of a way and how it's making this kind of money, Clinton Foundation. Okay. If you're putting TPUSA in the same sentence as the Clinton Foundation, that is how corrupt this has got to be, because we know the Clinton Foundation is corrupt as hell. And now that we've seen the rest of the Epstein files getting dropped and all those pictures of Bill Clinton naked in a pool with underage girls who are naked too, but nobody cares. It's just Bill. He just does that kind of stuff. I voted for him twice. Oh my God. What was I ever thinking? I was back in my 20s and I was a Democrat and yay. And yeah, I'm going for Bill Clinton. And then I realized that they were just using the gay people to get their votes. They didn't give a crap about us. And he signed into law, the Defense of Marriage Act and Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I went, now don't tell me you're for me and then spit in my face and expect me to keep coming back to that pool. And then I looked over at the Republicans and I said, actually, I agree with most of their stuff. So I guess that's really what I am. I've been told that I'm a Democrat because I'm gay, but actually I'm not. And now I'm neither, because the Republicans are just as crappy as the Democrats at this point. I mean, we're like left with nothing because we know you're in a two-party system. You could vote third party, but it's never going to happen. They're never going to let that happen, even if they ever let our votes actually count. But so TPUSA is just as fraudulent. And what's really sad is I've been learning this through the years. And the first thing that opened my eyes to this was after 9/11. We had a Taekwondo school, my ex-wife and I, and we decided to do a kickathon to earn some money for the American Red Cross. Because, all of us felt so inept. Like, I need to do something. We were, just shocked. And you just felt like you wanted to try to help in some way. So I don't know what the American Red Cross was going to use the money for, but we did it. So we did a kickathon. We raised a few $1,000s. We sent it to the American Red Cross. And then a few months later, we find out through auditing and stuff like that, for those of you who are older like myself, the stories back then that revealed that the American Red Cross was like, well, we really didn't need the money for anything because, well, everybody was dead. So there wasn't anything to really help anybody with. So, we bought a new building and we needed some more furniture and equipment and computers and all this stuff. And I went, wait a minute. I did not do like 1,000 kicks in an hour so that you could buy a new computer. And then I started looking at all of these different charities and realizing they're all money laundering. If you are still donating to charities, stop. Do not give money to charities. They are money laundering operations. They set themselves up with this tax deferral stuff, and I'm going to be tax exempt, and we're non-for-profit. But everybody who's at the top of this thing, first of all, if you're making 7 figures at the top of even if you're making 6 figures, really at the top of a charity, if you get into charity work, you should not be expecting to get rich, and these people do get rich. And that is the case with TPUSA. I mean, this thing is bringing in money like you wouldn't believe. And I thought, why would you kill your cash cow? But clearly, Charlie is worth more dead than he was alive, because they're making way more money now. And when you look at it, it's like, what are they doing with all that money? Because you can't donate money to campaigns. TPUSA is supposed to be out of that fray. You're not allowed to do that according to the IRS. They can't take that money and start funding campaigns and stuff like that. They have to use it for other things. So where's all this money going? Well, we've talked in the past about there's all these different people that are on the board and everything else that have set up all these LLCs, and somehow the money's going out to those. Well, we're funding their little LLC charity and their little LLC charity over here. And the sad thing that I heard today when I was listening to the most recent episode of Crowdsourcing the Truth And they only put like the first 30 minutes on YouTube because they've gotten canceled so much and everything that you have to subscribe to the Substack and pay to get the rest of the video. So this is on a part of the video that I'm not going to share with you guys because, you know, I know what it's like to try to raise money doing this kind of stuff. So I don't want to take their stuff behind a paywall and put it out there. But Charles Ortel said, you know, you want to believe that Charlie Kirk, especially because he wanted to do the DOGE audit, didn't know all of this stuff was going on. But how in the world could he stand? It would be one thing if he was living in an apartment, you know, a 2-bedroom apartment, eating his Domino's pizza with his kids and going, I wonder what's going on with TPUSA, rather than sitting in your $4.5 or $5 million home and going, I wonder how I got all of this. Where did all this money come from? He wasn't stupid. We know Charlie wasn't stupid. So then you have to believe that he knew at least some of this. He had to know some of this was going on. And that's the thing that I've struggled with, because I really liked Charlie and I loved the way that he would debate and the work that he put in to try to help get our country back again and to put America first. And that he was finally pulling away from those certain donors that were putting the pressure on him. But yeah, I think Charlie knew a little bit about stuff. If he asked for a DOGE audit, he didn't know about all of it. And maybe that's why he was like, well, I know I'm getting a bunch of money, but there's still a heck of a lot more and it's going somewhere. It's not coming to me. So I don't know. So what do you guys think? Was Charlie shot? Was he electrocuted? Did a mic explode? Do we have another theory? Did something else happen? Was it an EMP weapon? I haven't really heard that one put out there yet, but was there some kind of an electric magnetic pulse that was just sent right to him and gave him a heart attack or something? Who knows at this point? We do know there was a wound on the neck and blood. So something caused that to happen. I know it wasn't a 30-06. If it was a bullet, it was a smaller caliber. Where did it come from? I don't know. We've also heard, you know, that there were different kinds of weird guns that were out in the audience somewhere. It just really sucks because we're not going to know. And when you play the game of Clue, you want to have somebody win at the end. You want to be the winner. And the only way we would be winners is if we get answers, and we're not going to get that. Now, before I sign off here really quick, I do have to address the fact that Candace did have another show after Mitch. And the only thing that she really said about online, how everybody's revealing that this Mitchell Snow has a backstory that doesn't match what he was telling her. And I don't know that he was part of any of the stuff he was talking about with her that was previous. She was telling everybody to focus on now, like what he has done now. I've checked all the metadata. He was definitely on the base when he said he was. All of his story about now checks out. And that's where she left it. And that's not good enough, because I don't just believe what you're saying now, because if you're not telling the truth about this, why am I going to believe this? If I can't trust this, I can't trust this. And I put up on my X, if you want to follow me, I'm Freedomstein M. It's Freedomstein Munster is the full name, but I can only get Freedomstein M for the @ I have a picture up there of this rodeo queen who supposedly works with the senator that was supposed to be there, Modi or whatever, from Las Vegas. She's good friends with him. They work together. It's a definite possibility that this woman is the woman that he saw, because she's got eyes very similar to Erika Kirk and rodeo queen. So she's a beauty queen. So looks high end too. So she could be a doppelganger, as Candace and Mitch talked about, for Erika Kirk. If that is the case, well, then all of this gets thrown out the window, because I already don't believe that Brian Harpole was there, because he said, oh, that guy was like 33 to 40. Brian Harpole is not that young. So I don't think Brian Harpole was there. And now I'm not sure that Erika Kirk was even there. And based on the fact that Mitchell isn't telling us the truth about his past and about that story about finding the tunnel and running for his life. And that, to me, all that story is BS. There's no truth in any of that. Then I don't know if I can believe all of this. Supposedly he has pictures and metadata to go with it. If he was at the base, I don't know how he got to where he was at, but that probably is why he got questioned for such a long time, because they're like, how the hell did you get in here where you're at? And what are you doing here? And if he's telling them that story, they're probably going, this guy is crazy. So to me, Candace needs to just get off that story because it's going nowhere. And unfortunately, I don't know if she's doing one tonight. I mean, she would have been doing it, about right now or a little bit before me. If she's gone on her 2-week Christmas break, yikes. You drop all that stuff and then you take off and leave us all sitting here going, X has totally debunked your Mitch Snow guy. So, and your only answer to that is, well, just ignore that and focus on this. Because then you're not any better than the other people who are feeding us a bull crap fed slop story. Just believe us. I can't just believe you or take your word for it anymore. I need to see the facts. I need to see the data. I need to see whatever you have. You need to show it to us. Your sources, they need to be out there. You have to do something. This doesn't work in a court of law, and it's also not going to work with me anymore. Because I'm not just going to believe what you're telling me, because that's what the federal government does too. And for those people who say the fact that you're even questioning this and you're listening to Candace, it makes you a part of a cult, and she's a cult leader. I think Mike Winger, some dude over on YouTube that's supposed to be a Christian or something like that, he was talking about anybody who's listening to Candace is part of a cult. And now that you've gotten roped into that, you'll be susceptible from here on out. And I commented under it. I'm like, oh, yeah, because totally buying the government story is not cult-like. And oh, yeah, I'm for sure going to start questioning stuff in the future again because of that. Dude, I've been questioning probably from the time I came out of the womb. I was one of those kids who was always like, why? Tell me to do something. Why do I have to do that? Why did that happen? How did that happen? What's going on? I always ask questions. And if you've ever listened to my other podcast, History Goes Bump, I always go down rabbit holes because I always want to know more. It's just the way my mind goes. So what do you guys think? Would love to hear in the comments. If you're liking what you're seeing, please hit like. Please subscribe, and I don't mind you sharing. And you guys have a great rest of your evening.